So another maple critique. In fact, I'm going to critique two trees. I'm sure by now you may realize that although I'm constantly doing maples, it is not that boring as I had imagined. When I started repeating these things about maples, I always felt that it would be boring, but you tell me it's not boring, and I've since realized that it's not boring because every situation is different. Every situation is different. It's like human beings. Every human being is different. So with the bonsai, they're all different. So they have their good points and bad points, and they can all be improved in some way. Now, at first glance, this is a tree which is still in training. You can see it in the training pot. It belongs to my colleague here, Shomo. In fact, he's one of my alumnus friends. And he managed to get this from an amateur grower who has developed it himself. And it's a lovely tree. I'm sure you would all give your right arm for a tree like this. It's big, the sort of thing I like. And it's a maple. I dare say the autumn color would be marvelous. And at first glance, it is almost a perfect tree. But the more you look at it, the more, I wouldn't like to call them faults, but there are points that can be improved. I never say that they are faults. It's just that there are aspects that can be improved. So let us look at this tree critically. So let's look at the so-called good points. If we come close with the camera, you can see the nebari. The roots are good, lovely spread. Look right round. It's got a lovely spread. Looking still at the nebari, this must have taken him at least 20 years to develop. I'm not sure what the full history is, but it must have taken him a long time to develop. There was another trunk there which he has obviously cut off at some stage, and that's why that base has thickened up so much. So that was a sacrificial which he has cut off. It will heal, but that, if you use this as the front, it is a blemish at the moment, but it will, become better in time. Okay, so I assume that because this is fairly open like this, and because the tree is leaning towards us, this would be regarded as the front. But as I've always told you, one should never assume that that is the best possible front. There are always other ways of looking for the front. Okay, maybe because this is open, we regard this as the front. But if you look at the trunk line from this angle is not so interesting. If you look at it at another angle, there's more slope and bend to the tree. So always keep an open mind and think what you can make as a better front. The branches are almost in the right place, and he's done a clever trick over here. He's brought this branch down. You see how he's brought it down? Right down like a hairpin, like a paper clip, and then went out that way. All right, that could be regarded as a defect, but it is serving the purpose. It fills that space there. These branches are okay. So the branches, he's just used whatever branches happen to be there, and it's made a nice conical shape. The other thing which stands out, and this is only purely superficially cosmetic, is what we call the pom-pom effect. It's almost like pruning a cloud tree. You see, this is what we call a pom-pom, like a poodle. You know how the French poodles are trimmed. So that's a pom-pom there, pom-pom there. So this pom-pom effect is not really nice looking. It can be improved much more. So if I can just do a quick prune on this, I can show you how we can get rid of that pom-pom effect. Obviously, they've taken a lot of trouble to develop this very thick pad, but we need to thin it a little bit, make it more flat so that it's not so much like a little ball. That is what creates that pom-pom effect. We don't want that effect. Make it a little flatter. Also, this grower has used guy wires to take the branches down. It's a nice way to bring a branch down rather than to use thick wire to bend it. I've undone it temporarily, but I can put it back if I wish. But also, if we look closely here, if we bring the camera close, you see there's a branch going there and there's a branch going there. It's a bit confused over there. So they've just grown foliage for the sake of growing foliage, and that's why you got such a thick pom-pom effect. You can see already by removing a few things like that, I have got this effect now. I've got away from the pom-pom effect. See, that's what I've removed. You see the difference between this and that. This is like a ball, but this I've now flattened. So most of these pads, this is a pad, classic pad, is not so pom-pom looking. And this is how you should maintain it, flat like that. So that is more, pleasing, and also it'll give more space between the branches. So simply by doing that, you can improve the tree. So let me begin by doing that before I look at anything else. So let's remove the pom-pom, and I will now get Shomu to do it. Would you like to do it?
Yes.
Have a go? And we will see what happens. So just remove anything which is growing upwards, so you get this sort of flat effect. And anything crossing, we will get rid of. Okay, now if you look at this one, this branch here is going back on itself. You've got to ask yourself, should it go? We can probably wire it out to flatten it like that, so you get a flatter thing like that, rather than crossing this. So with a bit of wire, we'll wire that, so we can do that.
Is it better?
We can still do a little more. So anything rising up. This is such a vigorous tree that we don't have any worries that it won't produce new shoots. Anything growing downwards, we get rid of. Try to encourage things to grow upwards. Okay, so that will be a nice pad flat over there. So that's how we've got rid of that pom-pom effect from there. So you'll get new leaves going on. Now this is another classic pom-pom there. So let me just go in. You see, we don't want that effect. We want it flat. Huh? So anything growing upwards I'm looking for to remove. Lots of density there, lots of ramification, but too much ramification in a wrong sort of way. It's just like a bird's nest. I'm trying to just eliminate the inward growing branches. You don't want them tangling and intermingling with each other. They should always grow outwards. See, we come here, look at this situation. This branch is going back inwards. I want to get rid of that. I want to take that out, so the branch is going outwards, not inwards. You see already I've done this side. You see the big difference between this and that now. I still have to thin that a little more. So that pom-pom effect I've eliminated now. And as it grows, we keep a close eye, making sure that it's not a pom-pom. So what was a pom-pom, I've now made flatter, like a proper pad. So we've done 3 pads now. We've done 3 pads. This is another one. I'll leave you to do this one just by pruning. Let's see how you get on. It's important to practice it. I could easily do it in like 10 minutes, the whole tree. But if you don't have a go, you won't get the confidence. So keep at it. So I'm just going to do this big pom-pom here. This sort of thing one could do in the winter when the tree has no leaves. You can see the structure better. But when it has leaves, you can also see what it is like with the leaves. So there's, pros and cons as to when you do it. And this is not just a job that has to be done in the dormant season without leaves on. I'm a great believer in pruning maples in the growing season. Even my big trees, when I prune our big garden maples, that is all done in the summer for the simple reason that whatever cuts you make, the cuts heal very quickly. Sometimes in winter, there are some people who believe in pruning in winter. That is dangerous because the frost can get in and can damage the twigs and the branches. But because the growth is so active in summer and the callousing and the healing is so fast, whatever is done in the summer will recuperate very quickly. So that heavy pom-pom, if you can just remember what it looked like, I've made it thin like this. So that is the effect you want. Remember always that maples are meant to be elegant looking trees. They're meant to be elegant and delicate. So also the other expression is that birds should be able to fly through the branches. This sort of effect there, the birds can't fly through there. So this is a very important thing to bear in mind. Okay? It looks quite different. If we compare it with the original tree, it is now what I would like to see a mountain maple look like. If we home in on the camera, the previous owner did some wiring, which is very clever, but because maples mark very easily, I think the time has come to remove the wiring. I think the wires have done their job. So rather than try and unwind it, we're just going to cut the wires out. Safer to do it that way. He's used all sorts of little tricks, hooking around dead branches like over here. It served the purpose, it's done the trick. Also over here, as I say, maples really mark so easily. When I remove the wire, you can see how badly it has marked it. When you come close, you can see how badly it's marked there. So you don't want it to get worse. So I'm just going to cut the wires off and remove it. When I wire maples, I do what is called an open coil. I think you've seen in some of my other videos. An open coil is just like a tunnel effect, so the wire just guides the branch in the right direction. I try not to wire it tight to the branch for fear of marking. Wire marks on conifers are okay, but for maples, the wire marks are very hard to grow out of. Once it's marked, it'll be there forever. So avoid using wire which marks. You can use it temporarily, but once it's done its job, you've got to remove it. So we got all the wires off. See, the wires are very effective, it's done the job. So, and this branch coming down like that, which he's done a bit of cheating really, it fills that space, so it's perfectly acceptable. All the branches are very nicely placed, so the tree has got lovely balance. So it's in a temporary pot, training pot. Let's see, I know that at this time of the year I can't do a major repot, so just for the aesthetics we can possibly just put it in another pot. These shallow round pots are very good for training. And because the tree is leaning this side, it's got a very nice gentle curve. So I'm not really trying to look for another front just for the sake of finding another front. It's been trained quite well, so I'll keep it like that. And the sort of pot that would suit this tree would be something like this. This is a mica pot. We can just tease a little bit of the root and get it into that pot, which will look better as a temporary training pot. So that is what we're going to do, and that will be the end of the exercise. Now let me just show you. I will get a root hook. It's very, very congested. And the soil is nothing special. It's almost like ordinary garden soil. But the tree is obviously growing quite well in it. In fact, this mica pot is a bit tight for that tree. But again, because I know it's a healthy tree, I can take some root off. If you look at the root again, there are some defective roots, like that going that way. You don't need that. We want radial roots. So that root should really be taken out. And we can still do that at this time of the year. Ideally, it should be done at repotting time in the spring, early spring. February time is best, but because we've missed that window, we can still do it. Again, we're looking at each situation on its own and seeing that this is such a healthy tree. Doing this at this time of the year won't affect it in the least. Let me see if I can find another pot. So we changed it from this pot into this temporary mica pot, and the tree looks completely different. Gone are the pom-pom domes of the pads, and we've got a more light-looking pad, a more delicate-looking maple, and this is how I would like to see the maples. So I hope this has been a useful exercise in learning how to refine a maple. So I have kept all the branches. All the branches are in the right place. We just removed the wires which had been used to create the branches on the crown. And all we've done is deal with the pads. So there you go.